Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June the 11th DCC meeting. Just regards fire drill, there's no fire drills planned for this evening, so if the alarm goes off, it's real. Fire exit there, fire exits out here. We meet by the Memorial Park entrance over there. So make your way there, thank you. Okay, just got my script to read out until I've memorised it in a couple of meetings' time. For the benefit of members of the public watching or participating in this meeting, I would like to explain who everyone is. My name is Councillor Tony Durrant and I am the chair of the committee. To my right are the councillors who will be making the decisions on the applications on this evening's agenda. To my immediate right and left are the officers who will be presenting the applications and providing advice to the committee. And our deputy chair is sitting on the end there, looking resplendent in green. The Development Control Committee is a regulatory committee and not a political meeting. The committee will be considering the published papers and examining the evidence brought before us tonight and will make decisions based on planning reasons only. We are guided by national and local planning policy and guidance. At the appropriate time, I will invite speakers to contribute to the meeting in the order set out in the update paper. May I ask all speakers, including visiting members, to speak clearly and to keep points made on the application to material reasons only. No further dialogue between members of the committee and speakers will be permitted once questioning is finished. All speakers will be reminded of their permitted speaking time and will be advised when they have 1 minute left. May I ask all committee members to avoid repetition and keep any comments on each planning application to a maximum of 4 minutes. We have 8 applications on the agenda tonight and anticipate finishing by 9 o'clock. I understand that planning can be emotive and ask that everyone remains polite and professional throughout this meeting. Thank you. So we move on. Apologies for absence and substitutions. We have apologies from Councillor Bound, who is substituted by Councillor Bowes, and we have an apology from Councillor Howard Sorrell. No substitute. Declarations of interest. Anyone with a declaration of interest?
Item 7.
Okay, thank you.
Item 4, I'm a member of the Campaign for Real Ale who have a policy statement opposing the closure of pubs, so I shall remove myself for the items pertaining to the Red House.
Right, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, thank you. Urgent matters. I'm not aware of any. We don't want to create any. Okay. Minutes of the meeting held on the 14th and 28th of May 2025. I will move from the chair that the minutes reflect accurately the meeting. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Right, we move on to the meat of the meeting, which is the applications for planning permission and public participation thereon. As I said earlier on, we have 8 planning applications to deal with. Get to my papers. And the first one is item 1, and the officer will introduce the application. Thank you.
This is a full planning permission for land at the rear of the Poplars New Road, Pamber Green, Hampshire. The application is for the erection of 3 new dwellings. The planning application was put before members back in 2022, where it was deferred, and it's now been returned. And then, as you can see in the update papers, members visited the site at the viewing panel. Because of the delay in returning it to Planning Committee from 2022, we have done an additional consultation to neighbours, and the reasons are there in the update paper that there's only one other consultation that took place in 2020. There have been changes to address points surrounding the sites, and the recommendation has changed. Previously it was for approval, it's now for refusal. So officers felt that it was a requirement that we should really notify neighbours because of the passage, the big time. At the meeting on the viewing panel on site, members wanted to know the speed of New Road. I can confirm it is a 30 mile an hour road. And because of the consultation that's taking place with the neighbours, which expires on the 30th of June, which is after this meeting, the recommendation is changing from refuse on the main papers, page 49, to page 2 of your update papers, which is recommendation delegate to the head of planning and infrastructure to refuse the application for the reasons given on page 49 and 50 of the main papers, following both the expiry of the consultation period, the 30th of June, and subject to no new material planning matters being raised by neighbours.
We will move to speakers. We have 3 objectors, it looks like, a Mr. Fryer and a Mr. and Mrs. Gill. If you would like to move to the seats in front there. You have 4 minutes between you, and when you're settled, it's the button on the right-hand side. The 4 minutes will start counting down. I will give you a nudge at 1 minute so you can bring your point to conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. As I'm sure you're aware, on the visibility, as per required, 2.4 metres back and 43 metres left and right, from on the basis of the viewing that you guys went to, can't be achieved at the moment. And there's no way without the additional purchase of land that visibility could be created. In order to create that visibility, the applicant would need to remove hedging on land owned by 4 other houses, Rose Cottage, Savannah, Poplars and Walnut Tree House, which I don't believe is enforceable by the applicant. Also during the visit, the members of the committee would have seen what happens when a car tries to leave the lane onto New Road. The visibility is poor, so that you have to inch out very slowly to make sure that you're safe. And there have been numerous near misses, although I note that no accidents have taken place, and that's been documented. The lane itself has no passing points, and so therefore an additional 3 houses with an additional number of cars would create, especially with deliveries, a backlog potentially of vehicles down the lane, meaning that you either have to reverse back onto New Road, which in itself, as we've just said, is the visibility is bad. It's even worse when you're trying to reverse. And therefore, I would agree that with your recommendations at the moment that it should be refused. Matthew, do you want to say anything?
So I'm Mr. Gill. I live in Rose Cottage, one of the houses on New Road. I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Gill. I got subbed in, so apologies for Mrs. Gill not being here this evening. To support James's points, the sightlines moving in and out of the shared driveway is difficult. The hedges, certainly the hedge in front of Rose Cottage has been there an awfully long time. Certainly predates our tenure and the previous dwellers in the house. So it goes back at least 20 years. Our suspicion is it's the original hedge when the house was built, which is over 120 years ago. So I don't kind of feel a real strong kind of compunction to move the hedge to allow the sightlines to improve. The narrowness of the lane is in itself, of the actual shared drive in itself, is a real challenge. As James has said, manoeuvring in and out is a challenge. And whilst there hasn't been an accident coming out of the drive into New Road, there was a significant accident coming off New Road into the drive. I think it was summer 2022, and I think photographs of the damage was shared. So it was that corner there. 1 minute left. A delivery lorry drove into the hedge and burnt it down. That's why there is a new fence there, and burnt down some of the fencing, and also destroyed some of the children's play equipment in the garden. It was a delivery lorry that misjudged the bend, or I don't think we ever had a proper investigation, but it certainly misjudged the bend in some way and destroyed quite a lot of
the boundary of Rose Cottage. So so as a family, we're not that keen on increasing the traffic in and out of the lane at all. And
Start to conclude now, please.
well, I think that's probably the last point to make, actually.
Before we move to questions from members, just to remind you that we would like the question first. If the speaker needs to clarify something about your question, they will do so. And that will, you can bring the reasoning and for your questions and response to the answers in the debate section later on. In support of the application, we have Mrs. Cottrell, or possibly not Mrs. Cottrell. Mr. Sorry, I do apologise. It was Mr. S. I'm sorry.
So, good evening, Chair. Some of you will remember this application from March 22, and the main sticking point back then, as it is now, is over the access and the visibility displays, as you have all seen on the viewing panel last week. The applicant has the right to use the land and access, and over the years, this has been used, this land, for farming, forestry. It's even been used as a piggery, which they could do, again, if they wanted to, which means they could run tractors in and out via that access, which means visibility for them. Is it a problem for them to use in its current state? That's one of my kind of main points. These hedges, over the years, have been allowed to actually grow out. It's recently been cut back, but I don't believe that's been cut back to the highway's boundary edge. There was a report that was put through by the traffic company that the actual applicant has used, which is a company called RGP, which was shown there earlier, which shows the extent of the actual highway's boundary line. They concluded that if the hedges were back to those boundary lines, the visibility displays of 43 metres could be achieved. The officers have accepted that in the officers' report. It does say that, but they go on to say that they're not prepared to say that we need to cut hedges back because it will change the street scene and change the character. Now, we're not proposing to remove the hedge, as you've just been told. We're not proposing to do any of that. It's simply to trim it back to achieve those 43 metres, which is achievable. You can see that in terms of, if we were able to look at Google Street View, you can look back through and you can see that the hedge line in 2009 was way back past the telegraph pole that's there. Now, that hedge seems to incorporate the telegraph pole. So it shows that the hedge line has actually moved closer to New Road itself. So for me, if these were to be trimmed back, and like I say, we're not asking to completely remove them, as you've just been told, the visibility displays would be achievable. You've just heard there about the accident that happened on the corner and the fire that took place. Well, the fence that's actually there, if you can show the picture that shows the post and rail fence, that's not the fence that was originally put up. There was an 1800, 6-foot panel fence that was taken right the way to the corner. And there was an enforcement inquiry that looked into visibility displays and looked into that, and the applicant or the owner of the property there had to modify that the fence again to the post and rail that's there to provide suitable displays. So if those suitable displays were adequate for the enforcement team to close that case, why is it now a problem? Turning to the other reasons that the officers have put forward, one of the main ones I think is very unjust.
You have 1 minute left, if you can start to conclude.
Yep. To claim that this site is unsustainable is unreasonable to me. The application I referred to at the end of the access lane there received permission last year for the conversion of an annex into a new dwelling. That was deemed as having good connections to the bus stop that's at the end of New Road. That's within 400 metres. You can walk that far. To put that in context, from the main car park to the chambers here is 150 metres. Most people are happy to walk that distance. There is a claim in all the documentations that says 500 metres to a bus stop. We're well within that. So to claim it's unsustainable, I believe, is incorrect. And that goes with all the other properties that have been, have all been, approved along New Road. You will have seen lots of properties along there that have been done. So applying tilted balance and lack of 5-year supply, I'm asking you to please look at this sensibly and apply tilted balance, and please approve this application accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think your words were, you could walk that far to the bus stop, 400 metres. Can you state categorically whether there's segregation between pedestrians and traffic on that road?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, you know, there isn't a footpath along that route, but in terms of the sustainability, it talks about using other means of transport, which walking, cycling, being able to get on the bus is a key part within the NPPF. My point being...
Thank you. You have answered the question now. Thank you very much. Return to your seat. Thank you. Questions for officers? Councillor McCormick, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Are there any other properties that use that lane at the moment? And if so, why is that not taken into consideration with the Highways objection and the recommendation on the report?
If the properties already use them and they exist, then that's the existing situation. The houses are there on the plans back in 2022. They've been there a long time. This is a new application, so we have to consider the impact of increasing the traffic. We have consulted Hampshire Highways on the additional note that has been submitted, technical guidance, it's not a note, that has been submitted since the application was deferred, and the officer has included the highway comments in full on page 65 to 66 of the main papers. It's the lack of visibility, and you're increasing the risk by putting more houses using it. We can't stop the existing houses using it because they exist, but this is an application to add more dwellings to it, so there is an objection from the Highway Authority.
Do you have a supplementary?
To what extent could we expect reasonable adjustments to be made by the developer for the visibility, given that it's not their land in the immediate vicinity, but is there anything they could have considered, like mirrors, to improve visibility?
That is a Highway Authority type question, and in their advice, their response back in, I think it was in March 24, they gave a link. They confirmed that further information on Hampshire County Council's visibility displays requirement can be found in Technical Guidance Note 3. So there is advice out there to look at, but based on the information provided by the applicant, the Highway Authority is objecting to the application.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chairman. Mainly for my edification, when the location diagram is put up and you see the red line, I think it's the first time I've seen a highway or the edge of the highway being included away from the site of the proposed residence. And that the one that runs along the road, I didn't think that we had the red line around areas that was not under the control of the applicant. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it. Could you explain, please?
Anybody can submit a planning application on land they do not own, and I'm just checking my notes here, and that yes, notice was served on Hampshire County Council. So if you don't own land, as long as you serve notice on the owner of the land, then for planning purposes you've done what is required to submit the planning application. Whether the owner gives you permission to build out the planning permission is separate to planning, but for planning you either declare that you are the owner or you declare you have served notice on the owner, in this case the Highway Authority, and that is required is with the planning application. So it is possible, yes.
Okay. Do you have a supplementary? No? Anyone else?
Thank you.
Freeman, sorry.
So just so I understand it, with reference to Councillor Miller's question, if we did approve this, well, it's obviously up for refusal, but hypothetically, if we did approve it, it still might not be able to go ahead if Hampshire or whoever owned that bit of land objects and refuses to sell it. Is that correct?
Whether Hampshire probably wouldn't have to sell it, it's just whether they've doing works in the highway. So if it was, say, an application for 50 houses and it was creating a new access and it was going to have drop curbs and traffic lights and pedestrian visibility space, they would serve notice on the county at the time of the application. The county would consider the design of the application and we would grant planning permission, but then separate to that they would have to get an agreement from the county under the Highways Act to do works in the highway. So it's a separate agreement, but the county are consulted as the Highway Authority, so we don't grant planning permission for something that, for 50 houses that could never happen or something like that. So.
Thank you.
Nothing else? Okay. Thank you. We will move to debate.
Chair, I'm reasonably happy to move the recommendation. In fact, I'm surprised we don't get more high-risk objections on things like this. It's a fairly convincing argument, and as a statutory consultee, objecting that has considerable weight. So I'm happy to move.
Thank you. I'll give Councillor Hussey a chance to have his say and then we'll seek a seconder.
New Road is a narrow road, 30-mile-an-hour limit, and no segregation for pedestrians. One of the residents referred to the site visit and we saw a vehicle pull out from the junction. And it edged out up to 1 metre onto New Road before it had appropriate sight lines. At the present time, we have 4 houses, and this is going to 7. There's a highway risk, a safety risk, but understand the impact. If there's only 1 vehicle per day coming out of that junction, the chance of an accident is low. If there's 1 a minute, the chance of an accident increases quite considerably. This is going from 4 to 7 houses, a 75% increase. It's already not safe with 4 houses there. This is just 3 too many. If the application was only for 1 extra house, I would still vote for refusal. So I second the motion.
Well, we have a motion and a seconder, so all those in favour? Thank you. We have a...
I can confirm that the application has been delegated to officers to refuse the application, subject to the expiry of the consultation period of the neighbour letters, which is the 30th of June 2025, and subject to no new material planning matters being raised by neighbours.
We will move to item 2. And we have we have 3 speakers. We have Town and Parish Council, Susan Turner. If you would like to come forward. Oh, sorry. Yes.
This is a technical detailed consent application following the approval of a PIP application, a permission in principle, for 2 to 4 dwellings. And the description of development for this one is application for technical details consent for the erection of 4 new dwellings with associated parking, access and landscaping in accordance with permission in principle 20/01591/PIP. There is an update on your update papers. Members viewed the site last week. Since the printed papers were public, we've done an additional consultation with Hampshire County Council. That's in your update papers. And they've confirmed that they have no objection to this application, despite the outstanding application to retain the lane as is, which is listed on your papers there, which they have no objection to, and their full response is in the update papers. And so given that response, the HCC highways assessment and the assessment in the report stays as on the main agenda. However, because we have a clear no objection from the county, the prior commencement condition that was proposed, condition 7, has now been altered to be a after commencement. So details to be provided, damp-proof course of refuse storage, and then to be delivered before the properties are occupied.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the false start. If you would like to come down. And you will have, once you're seated and you press the button on the right-hand side, you will have 4 minutes. So when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Cliddesdon Parish Council is not disputing the principle of development. Planning in principle has been granted for a maximum of 4 and a minimum of 2 houses. The Parish Council does object to the design and layout of the proposed development. The application is for a suburban-style cul-de-sac development at an elevated edge-of-village location within a designated local gap. The proposal has incurred continued objections from landscape and environmental health officers. Environmental health refers to the MPPF 2024 Achieving Well-Designed Places, saying that the applicant has consistently failed to satisfy requirements of local and national policy and guidance. The Parish Council's objections principally relate to the applicant's apparent disregard for Cliddesden's neighbourhood plan policies. The neighbourhood plan's design and development policies reference the Cliddesden design codes. Design Code 1. New developments are to reflect the linear, one-plot deep character of areas where this is a predominant characteristic, enabling views of the countryside across the area. 1E. Density in new development proposals should be appropriate to the location and respond to the rural character of the plant area. 1G. The layout of new development should reflect the characteristic wide plots found across the plant area. This offers space for trees and views to the countryside beyond, which is a defining feature of the area. 1H. The use of cul-de-sacs in new developments would be contrary to the prevailing rural character of the plant area and should be resisted. The Case Officer report cites Clewiston Rise and Langdale Rise as examples of neighbouring developments with which this proposal for Little Acre might correspond, rather than the prevailing linear character, rural aspect, and eclectic mix of properties on Woods Lane and across the wider village. Clewiston Rise is generally acknowledged as an anomaly in Cliddesden development pattern. It received approval as a brownfield development on a former scrapyard. Langdale Rise is the recently high-density cul-de-sac development of 5 large uniform-style houses built on the former garden of one modest bungalow and achieved via procession of applications. This suburban cul-de-sac overdevelopment, the neighbourhood plan specifically seeks to avoid. The landscape officer considered the present proposal for Little Acre to be an overdevelopment of the site, saying that the revised layout has not addressed the concerns of narrow garden spaces. This issue is fundamentally due to the site being overdeveloped. The residential dwellings in the village are often set within large plots with spacious front gardens and rear gardens, except those at road junctions, including Langdale Rise. The site
You have
lies
1 minute.
outside the settlement edge, facing the countryside. Therefore, the rather intense layout would be harmful to the settlement pattern and the landscape character. With regard to housing mix, Neighbourhood Plan Design Code 1F specifically states that new developments should provide housing sizes that meet local need, 1, 2 and 3 bedroomed houses. Cliddesden's recently adopted neighbourhood plan was made with several years of intensive input from local volunteers, supported by 97.9 in favour from a turnout of 42.16% and approved by government and inspector. A sympathetic design which conforms to policy, including meeting the requirements of the GAP policy, could be achieved in line with the PRIP proposal. The PRIP
You'd
approval.
like to move to conclusion, please.
The Parish Council requests this application be refused, so the proposal may be presented which seeks to meet the intent of Cliddesden's neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Spot on. Okay. Questions to the Parish Council from members? No? None at all? Thank you very much. If you'd like to retake your seat. We will now move to our objectors, Mr. Andrew Steele, if you would like to come forward. No? In support, Mr. Nick Cobbold. You will have, once you take your seat and press a button, you will have 4 minutes, and I will remind you with 1 minute to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I prepared what I was going to say, and I might just scrap that in light of what the Parish Council has just said. I've got a few things to unpick from what you've just heard. First of all, they say not disputing the principle of development, and then give you 4 minutes of why they're disputing the principle of development. It seems to be linked here to the neighbourhood plan adopted, made, I should say, to give it its correct word, made in 2024. So after the permission in principle was granted, and that's quite an important consideration, because you've heard about the local gap. You saw a picture showing the local gap. I think it flicked past anyway. That was introduced after and in the knowledge that permission in principle for the development of this site had been agreed. So why was it put in the local gap when the other site next to it, between it and the settlement boundary, wasn't, for example? That's got planning permission for 4 houses. What's the rationale? The rationale is to try and fight back against the permission in principle, presumably. We've heard about layout, suburban, elevated position, impact on landscape, etc. I'll come back to the tilted balance in a minute, but the permission in principle establishes 4 dwellings on the site, and it must be viewed in the context of what is around the area. We've heard about, let's call it displeasure, shall we, at the other development which has happened in the area in the last 10 years, but they are now all part of the character of the area. The site location plan was quite useful, because it showed the properties at Langdale and at Bewley, which had developments to the rear, and it showed the 4 houses, it's an earlier one than that, it showed the 4 houses which had been approved to the immediate east of this property, of this site as well. They're all part of, there you go, all part of the established character of the area now, and they all separate the application site from the conservation area, another important consideration, because I know conservation's been raised here. So the proposed development is at a density consistent with the character of the area, which is established, whether you like it or the Parish Council like it or not. I will revert back to what I planned. So I was going to talk a bit about the sustainability of the location in context of what we've just heard. That's not, when I say just heard, in context of the previous application, that's not for debate here. The permission in principle granted, yes, albeit in a different MPPF era, but it establishes the principle that is agreed, and not for debate here, even though the planning officer has said in the committee report it's located adjacent to the settlement policy boundary and is therefore considered a sustainable location for housing. That's quite important in light of the decisions coming out of the council at the moment.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Going back to the neighbourhood plan, I promised to discuss That doesn't give any additional protection against development in the area. It doesn't allocate houses, and therefore under paragraph 14 of the MPPF, it doesn't give you any extra protection against development. All the policies quoted, which apparently the parish council feel the application is contrary to, they are all subjective judgments. They are for you to make a judgment on. The balance here is, do the benefits outweigh the harm? The benefits, obviously, the delivery of houses, which has been accepted in principle. The harm is limited, according to the committee report. I would say there is no harm to worry about, and therefore I think you can be comfortable to recommend and proceed with approval of the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from members? No? Thank you. Thank you very much. If you'd like to retake your seat. Questions for officers from members? Councillor Miller, Councillor Jones, Councillor Grassi.
Thank you, Chair. We've been through PIPs and TDCs before. I refer to the update paper, and there's this discussion about the collection point for refuse for these particular houses. I think I'm going to use the expression cumulative build-up here, because there are 10 houses accessing this lane. We understand that all the refuse collection will be done at the end of the private access track on Wood Lane. That's the first part of the question, whether that can be confirmed. And I look at the conditions in the update paper, which is unnumbered, under update conditions 7, and I lost the English against the reason. It didn't make any sense to me. There's some words missing, I think. That the council's policy of changing the number of refuse collection bins to each household in this borough is going to change imminently within the next 12 months. We've got 10 houses in this development, and that's the cumulative increase for the collection. A worst case scenario, I know it's staggered, but there's always a worst case scenario where everything comes together. And is this satisfied under this condition 7 and under the reason? Because it's not clear to me. Could you clarify this, please?
At the time of writing the report, it wasn't clear, so that's why we went to the county to ask them if they had an objection to the whole of the development on the lane, the 4 new houses, the application to change, not to change the lane, and these proposed 4 houses. Their response is in full on the update paper. There is no objection to them. We did make it clear that the proposal is likely to be that the bins would be left on the side of the highway. They haven't raised an objection to that. The joint waste team were consulted on the application, who are the people who manage we consult them when we've got applications in, and they do it, and they stated that they they had no objection, and they expected that the bins would have to be left and brought to Woods Lane for collection. So on that basis, officers are recommending that there would be a time when there would be bins on the lane, on Woods Lane, in the verge and everything else, but it would be once a week for a short period of time. And there's no objection from the highway or the waste authority, so officers have not included it as, have on balance, have said that short collection window is an acceptable change to the area for the collection morning. And regarding the condition, it's basically saying they can implement their development, they can start building, but they have to provide us with the details to show that there is a clear collection area within each plot and how they are going to manage to deal with it. And if it comes through as being pulled up the lane by the residents once a week, then we've already asked highways, and that's what our waste team are expecting. So that's why we're saying it doesn't have to be a prior to commencement one now, because we have questioned the Highways Authority and the Joint Waste Team, and neither have said that it would be a huge issue.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Yes. Just doing a quick bit of math, the worst case scenario for 10 houses to put their collection bins down the end on Wood Lane would end up with potentially 30 bins out there. Now that's because of the policies of this council, and we know what's coming down the pipe for the increasing of the number of bins that each household is going to have to be putting out. I said the worst case scenario. I know it's staggered, but there's a case where you will get 3 bins per household going out on a single day. And that's the reason I raised the question, notwithstanding what's been put into the update report. We've been briefed on it.
The Waste Team were consulted, and their suggestion, if I dig out their comments in full, I can read them. Just bear with me a second.
I think if the Waste Team haven't objected to it, they're aware of what the change is going to be coming, that there's going to be increase in the number of bins. And yes, we accept there will be more there, worst case scenario, but there's no objection from either the statutory quantity in terms of the highways and the Joint Waste Team. So that's why we're not raising that as an issue.
Would you like me to read out what they said, the Waste Team? Okay, I'll read it out in full. Comments. Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council operates a curbside waste collection service. This is operated via wheeled containers which must be left adjacent to the nearest adopted highway for collection on the specified waste collection day. The proposed development will be required to leave wheeled containers on Woods Lane, the paddocks, for collection by 1600 hours, May to August, and 0600 hours, May to August, and 0700 hours, September to April, on the specified collection day, and removed from the bin collection point and returned back to the property as soon as possible following collection. The bins must be presented on the main road as per all other residents.
My statement stands, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm unclear. The photograph we saw of the raised area with the wooden, yes, that one. Well, there are two things. A, how do you actually get up there? Is there some sort of slope? And the second part, which is not entirely clear to me, is the ownership of the access road. And is that all on the council's land that you would construct this? And would it be possible to get onto it without encroaching on land owned by someone else? I know we appear to have a restriction on the width of this because of the owner of the land. But I wonder whether the bin men would be happy to get their bins up onto that and down with 30 bins to collect.
I think I'd break down a couple of points in that. In terms of where they would go, unfortunately, I don't think there is a photograph of the other side of the verge, which has a level verge, which Meredith went on.
It's not got a thing.
Oh, we've got, yeah, you can just about see it there. That was before the works took place on the other side, so there is some scope there. When you say ownership of the access, do you mean the access onto the highway or the track from the highway to the development site?
I mean, the information we seem to have is that the track itself is owned by someone else, and there have been objections to widening it. And presumably, I don't know where we're back to the, what was it, 2.5 metres that we had on the other application, or somewhere there. We must meet that land that's owned by someone other than Highways.
My colleague here has pulled up the highway ownership plan, which unfortunately we can't throw onto the screens. The extent of the highway boundary is the front garden of Hillfield Lodge, which, if you've got the, can you put the location plan up, please? So yeah, so you see on that location plan, the house just, can you use the pointer, Susie? The house to the right of the access, and there's a line. So that's on looking at the the highway ownership maps that we've got on our GIS, that's within the highway, that part. And then from beyond that line, where the pointer is now, back is private land. The application, I'll just check my notes. The notice was served at the application. As I was saying to Councillor Miller previously, you don't have to own land to put a planning application on it as long as you serve notice. So from that point of view, for the planning application, that's required. And with regard to the changes on the application, the retrospective application that's in at the moment, the county has confirmed that there's no objection to those on that file. And as I said, we sought clarification after the papers were printed, and the case officer went back to the county listing the 4 houses that were approved, the application in that's not yet determined to modify it, and this proposed application, and they came back saying that there was no objection to this based on all of the development coming off that lane that's built, considered, changes being considered, and then this one is a new one being proposed.
Supplementary?
I guess, Chair, it's just whether that plan for that treatment of that corner is a formal plan or just a blue skies suggestion. And I wasn't clear, were you saying that it would be entered from the far end on the road where the levels were different? I wasn't absolutely clear what you were saying there. It appeared to be a lot higher than the access road.
The principle of putting the bins on the highway, we sought clarification from the county, and they've said in principle there's no objection, and it is what has been expected from the waste team. It is a disturbance once a week for a short period of time, where they would be left. That's why we've got the condition to see if they would put any layer, hard standing or anything like that. That would be in the highway. It would need the permission of the Highway Authority. If it would be in an informal arrangement, as is the case for the existing properties, officers have to base their recommendation on the advice that's given. And say we have gone back to seek the impact of all of the houses from the highway and Highway Authority, and they've been clear that they don't have an objection.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grassi.
Actually, my question was the same as Councillor Miller's, and I am unhappy with the narrow track. Also, with the what was planned for the pickup for the waste as well. I think it's going to be a hazard. I'm not entirely happy with it. And that's why I stand on that.
Is there a question in there?
There's not really a question because I've already had it answered by before.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for your contribution. Okay. Thank you. We will move to debate.
I think Councillor Freeman had a hand.
My attention now, sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am not overly comfortable with this application at the moment. I know it's up for approval, but firstly, I do think if you look at the block plan, the houses on this site seem very squashed in compared to everything else around there, which I say would suggest points to an overdevelopment. And secondly, again, with the bins, if the bins are left on that little triangle by the highway, how is that going to affect the visibility displays? I'd hear what everybody else has got to say first. I'm not overly comfortable with it, but I don't know whether, when you're looking at the planning balance, whether the benefits outweigh the harms. But those are certainly my concerns. It does look very squashed in, and the bins are very much an issue.
Thank you. Councillor McCormick.
I shall try and preempt any repeat comments on technical development consent and PIPs. We all hate them, don't we, really? We don't like that principle. A PIP has been granted, so the principal development is not up for discussion tonight, and I think that also includes things like bins, because the number of houses dictates the number of bins. we've approved permission in principle for 4 houses, therefore there'll be a number of bins. Also, I think Councillor Freeman does raise a valid point about the location, this kind of relatively cramped plan before us doesn't really appear to be in keeping with the more laid out aspects of the neighbouring properties. Although in terms of character and appearance, I know that the paddocks and some of the other more recent developments are quite modern. I think that was what the applicant's agent was saying, that basically precedent's been set in terms of appearance. So I will leave it to the other members of the committee if they do have some reasons for refusal, but I think given where we are with the PIP already being granted, I think the chances of us being able to successfully refuse this are vanishingly small.
Councillor Hussey.
Could the officers put the location plan up, please? Looking at the actual site itself of 4 houses and comparing that with a similar but larger shape area coming off Woods Lane, near to the entrance to the development site. There are 7 houses in an area that is not that much bigger than the proposed development site, with 4. So in terms of, unless the officer can give me some housing density, I think comparing the 2 sites, it's not overdeveloped compared to the one that's already coming off Woods Lane. They're of a similar density, I would suggest. I'm not happy with the storage of the bins for collection. But that's the only thing that I'm not happy with, and that isn't sufficient reason, in my book, to refuse this application. I fully support what Councillor McCormack has said, so if he's proposed it, I will second it, or if he's not proposed it, I'll propose it.
So Councillor Hussey, you're moving for approval? Councillor McCormack, you seconding?
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly, right. All those in favour? Right, thank you. We have the decision. Sorry. Yes.
I can confirm that the TDC application has been approved as per the conditions on the printed paper and the amended condition 7 on the update paper.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item 3. I'm advised we can talk about item 3 and 4 when Councillor McCormick has left the room together, but we have to vote separately on each application. So, okay.
So you can introduce item 3 and
Yeah, you can do, yeah. But we vote separately. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Item 3 and item 4 will be addressed together. Item 3 is in relation to the Red House Inn, and it's a change of use of the public house, restaurant and residential flat to 2 dwellings, demolition and replacement of existing single-storey rear extension, partial blocking up the cellar, associated internal alterations, car parking and landscaping. Item number 4 is the subsequent listed building consent for the same works. In terms of update, we've got an update in relation to item number 3, which is in relation to, we did a consultation with the Environmental Health team, and it's been confirmed that there is no issue in relation to radon, as it's something we wish to raise. Also, there's a couple of points as outlined in the update paper from the agent, just summarizing some key points for your consideration. And the update paper in relation to item number 4 is the same as item 3. It's confirmed that there's an extant permission already for the site for the change of use of the pub into 2 dwellings, and this is still extant. So this must be therefore noted, and the loss of the public house has already been previously agreed. Thank you.
Okay. We have one speaker this evening in support. That is Rebecca Jubb. Hope I got that right. You will actually get 8 minutes as we're looking at the two together, if you absolutely require 8 minutes between you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm Rebecca Jubb from Bell Cornwell, agent for the application, and I've got a representative for the applicant here just in case you ask any questions that I can't answer regarding the property. But really, I just want to thank the officer for a very thorough report that summarises everything you need to know. And I definitely don't need the 8 minutes. I want to keep it very simple and just reiterate the 3 points that are in the update report. We already have a planning permission and listed building consent that is extant for another 18 months or so. We won that appeal after a committee overturn, and we did get a full award of costs because the inspector confirmed there was no justification at all for the refusal in the first place. We have submitted some SIL documentation with the applications, but that's not a material consideration for determining the applications in front of you today. That is a completely separate process. I'm aware that some objectors have raised some questions about that, but that's not a matter for consideration right now, and that will follow its own process in due course. And really, we're just really keen to get permission granted again so that we can get on and deliver this development, get the investment that the building needs, and deliver the two houses that already have planning permission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from members? Councillor Freeman.
If you already have extant planning permission, why have you brought us a different application? What is the purpose of the changes that you have made to your application?
We have just submitted clarification on a couple of points on the floor plans that came out during SIL discussions subsequent to the previous permission being granted. And also just to clarify some points that also relate to SIL, but as I said, that's not really relevant to the application. It just means we had to go through the paper exercise of getting a new planning permission in order to revisit the SIL process afterwards. So it really is not material to the application now. Thank you.
So, Mr. Jones.
I was wondering whether we could just have a little bit of, this may be something I should ask the officers, but the blocking off of the cellar there, I'm not quite clear. Is that to create this parking area that we see on the block plan?
No, it's not related to parking at all. It is simply just showing that there's an area that we want to block off because it's not usable floor space, and therefore we didn't want it to be considered as part of the proposal. So it's just a minor change for that purpose.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there any more? Okay, thank you very much. If you'd like to return to your seats. Questions for officers on either application or both? Councillor Court.
Thank you, Chair. One of the comments I see here from the Parish Council refers to the fact that it's a Grade 2 listed building. So will this actually require that form of approval? Question mark.
That is item number 4. So we're obviously looking at the item number 3, which is the planning permission for full, and item number 4 is the listed building consent. So both are before you today.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? We can move to debate. Councillor Freeman.
Oh, well, I sat on this committee when we first had this up and we refused it against the advice. We lost the appeal, and these plans, they seem to already have the plans. I am not happy. We weren't happy with it to start with. I'm still not happy with it, but I don't see any valid planning reasons on which we can refuse it. So that's my two penneth at the moment.
Councillor Miller, then Councillor Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, fortunately, I wasn't on that committee at the time, but given the circumstances that we face this evening, I'm quite happy to propose the officer's recommendation.
Now we have to vote for the consent. So again, proposer?
I'll propose item number 4.
Item 4. Seconder, Councillor Hussey. All those in favour? And Councillor Freeman's abstaining.
So thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that item number 3, which is in relation to the full, has been approved as per the agenda, and also item number 4 in relation to the listed building consent has also been approved as per the agenda. Thank you, Chair. Item number 5 is a retrospective planning application at Quarter Acre, Andover Road, Highclere. The retrospective application is for the erection of ancillary annex / garden room, access ramp and associated landscaping. In terms of update on the update paper, there is no update to report. However, I want to give a small verbal update that on page number 225 and paragraph 7.1, there was a typo made and there is 3 letters of objection, not 2, but that is the only update to report. Thank you.
Item 5, no speakers, so we can move to questions for officers. No questions for officers, so we can move straight to debate.
I think actually given this application and given the very complete information we've been given, I have absolutely no problems with the reasoning here, and I'm very happy to support the recommendation from the officer.
Do we have a seconder? Plenty of them. I'm going to give it to Councillor Grassi. All those in favour? That looks pretty unanimous.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that item number 5 has been approved as per the agenda with the conditions attached.
Thank you everyone for that one. We'll move on to item 6, if the officer would like to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 6 is a full planning permission for the construction of a self-built detached dwelling and garage, including a new vehicle access at Slade Hill Cottage, Slade Hill, Wootton Hill in Newbury. There is no update to report in this instance, so as per the agenda, it's recommended for approval.
Thank you. We have one speaker down, Kerry Flager. If you'd like to take your seat, and when you're ready, you'll have 4 minutes when you press the red button to speak on the right.
Thank you. The application site forms part of a large residential garden associated with Slade Hill Cottage in the village of Walton Hill. Whilst the site lies in the designated countryside as defined in the local plan, it is adjoined by residential development to the east, west and south, and planning in principle was approved for 2 houses to the north, with an application for technical matters currently pending determination. The application site therefore visually forms part of the village of Walton Hill. The application proposals are the same as those previously submitted in 2024, for which officers recommended approval. The application was waiting for a committee date when changes to national planning policy meant the council only needed to demonstrate a 4-year housing land supply, and as such officers considered they could no longer support the principle of a new dwelling, despite all matters being acceptable. The applicant subsequently appealed the council's decision, and whilst the appeal was dismissed, this was again only on the basis that the council could demonstrate a 4-year housing land supply. As such, there was no requirement for the council to consider the planning balance. The application is recommended for approval and has only been brought to committee due to local objection. However, objections largely relate to the principle of development, including the site's relationship with the settlement boundary and its location in the national landscape. Officers have consistently concluded that the proposed dwelling is of a design that is in keeping with the rural character of the area, and that the dwelling would not cause harm to the visual amenity of the area and would be acceptable in regard to its impact on the visual amenity and landscape character of the area. Officers have also concluded that the proposed dwelling would not adversely impact on the national landscape and would conserve the local landscape where the plot is already in residential use. When the 2 dwellings approved to the north were built, the application site will be surrounded by residential development, consolidating its visual relationship with the wider village of Walton Hill, which lies within the settlement boundary. Neighbour objections have suggested the new dwelling will overlook existing properties. However, the application site and Slade Hill Cottage form an island bound by roads, and as such the proposed dwelling would not adjoin any existing dwellings except Slade Hill Cottage. There are also mature trees running along the southwest boundary of the site, screening it from the road that separates the proposed dwelling and the closest existing dwellings. Officers have also confirmed they consider the proposals to preserve the amenity of existing neighbours. Reference has also been made to the existing dwelling on the site having been recently extended. The extension to the rear of the property would not affect the application proposals and would also ensure the existing property maintains a large garden. Officers have recommended permission subject to a number of conditions which are all acceptable to the applicant, including the need for a tree survey and arboricultural method statement to ensure the existing boundary trees are protected during construction. In summary, planning permission is sought for a detached dwelling on a parcel of land that visually forms part of the village of Walton Hill. The dwelling would be in keeping with the rural character of the village and would not adversely harm the landscape and scenic beauty of the national landscape. Statutory consultees have raised no objection on technical grounds, including highways, drainage and ecology. Whilst the proposal would make a small but valuable contribution to the council's housing land supply, it more pertinently represents a natural building plot surrounded by existing and permitted development within one of the district's sustainable villages. It's therefore respectfully requested that planning permission is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Very timely. Thank you. Questions from members, please? No? Thank you very much for your contribution. If you'd like to take your seat. We will move to questions for officers. Councillor Miller, Councillor Hussey, Councillor Jones.
Very quick one. Thank you, Chair. On page 285, the proposed site plan, I think it's about the first time I've seen in the block of the proposed dwelling, the GEA after the area. What does that mean, please? First time I've seen it.
That means gross external area.
Say again?
Gross external area. It's not a new term, no. It's something that we do see often, but I guess it's not often on plans like this, but it is something that's common.
I guess that doesn't mean a supplementary. Councillor Hussey? Councillor Jones?
Yes, the report appears to refer to the other building on this site, the next door neighbour, the next building. Is that actually complete, and does the plan showing the two buildings that we were just looking at reflect what's there now? This one, yeah.
I'm currently unaware of the current status of the land, of how they're getting on with building. As per the photos, I believe it was being under construction at the time. It is confirmed that the plans do not fully show the extensions on the plans of the existing dwelling. However, the relationship is acceptable and has been addressed within the report.
Supplementary?
Thank you.
Sorry, we can move to debate. Anyone want to kick off? Councillor McCormick?
Move the recommendation. It's outside the policy boundary, but I don't really see how we can refuse it.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you. Just to confirm that item number 6 has been approved as per the conditions and informatives outlined in the agenda.
Okay, we can move to item 7.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 7 is a householder application at 47 Waterhouse Grove, Lichfield, Hampshire. The proposal is for a single-storey front extension to provide extended entrance lobby and downstairs shower room. There is no update to present to you today about this, so the recommendation is for approval as per of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. We have absolutely no speakers. Yes, Councillor.
I propose the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hussey has a question.
If this hadn't been, Councillor Mike, would the officers have brought this application to committee?
No, they wouldn't have. The scheme of delegation is that obviously any member of the council have to come to committee.
Seconder then? Councillor Hutt. Oh, I'm going to give this one to Councillor Freeman. Is that all right? All those in favour? Unanimous again.
Thank you. Just to confirm, that's item number 7 has been approved as per the conditions and informatives outlined in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to item 8, and again, if the officer would introduce. Oh, we've got to, sorry, got to get Councillor. I knew I'd forget. Yeah. Where's she gone? How far had she got? Right, okay, we can move to item 8, and if the officer would like to introduce.
This is a householder application at 15 Phoenix Park Terrace, Basingstoke. The proposal is to demolish and rebuild existing garden wall to the rear of the property, replace existing gate with similar, strip, re-render and paint front elevation of the property the same colour, and render and repaint the 1970s extension to the rear of the property. The application is recommended for approval, and there is no update.
Any questions? Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Chair. Repeat from the previously, if this hadn't been a member of staff, would it have come to committee?
No, as it's a member of staff, the delegation is to bring it to committee.
Do you want to move that one?
Move to recommendation, please.
Okay. All.
I can confirm that application has been approved in accordance to the information on the main papers.
Last item on the agenda is a tree preservation order, confirmation of a tree preservation order. The officer wants to say something? Tell us.
Thank you, Chair. This relates to TPO 0725 to protect a woodland on land adjacent to Impstone Lodge in Soak Road, Silchester. The woodland in question is an extension of a protected woodland at the neighbouring property, Woodside, and was made following reports of tree felling and the submission of planning application 2402781 full. Which was subsequently withdrawn on the 22nd of April. As an objection has been received from the woodland owners in response to the serving of the order, the TPO has been brought before the committee to determine whether it will be confirmed. The officer's recommendation is that the TPO be confirmed. Thank you.
Does anybody want to say anything? Sorry? Oh, we've got a speaker. Sorry, I do apologise. I was looking at the wrong bit of paper. You have 4 minutes between you. When you press the right-hand button, the clock will tick. Oh, sorry, you need to confirm your names because we've got 3 down here and there's only 2 of you.
Yes, I'm Rex Haig.
And I'm Nicola Haig.
We own the property, and Dominic Haig sends apologies. He's not able to come today. He's our youngest son. I might explain a little about him in a minute.
Okay, thank you. That didn't come out of your 4 minutes, by the way, so you still have 4 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 1 red light, please.
1 red light. Okay, so we're pressing each time. Okay. Yes, this is all very new to us, and so excuse us if we don't know the protocol exactly, but I think we just want to explain this is a family project for our retirement. We're both retired NHS workers, and we want to build an eco house and on an ecological plot, looking at high qualities of biodiversity and woodland management. And so we were rather shocked when we received a TPO on the whole of the area that we're trying to improve at the moment. And so we went through this process and understand through Amy that we have to come along here and explain why we want to oppose the order. I'm going to stick to the 4 points here to keep to my 4 minutes. Reasons for making the order. We obviously don't know the reasons for making the order, but we presume somebody has complained that we're wanting to develop the site in some way, which is with building on it, which is absolutely not true, although that did happen to the adjacent site, which is contiguous with this woodland. So I guess that's the reason for the order in the first place. The second point, impact, if the trees in the order were removed. Well, the impact would actually be to improve the woodland because they're grossly overgrown. They've not been tended to for probably decades, and there's very little light penetrating and nothing growing on the floor of the wood there where there should be. And Nikki, you wanted to say something about the biodiversity side of things.
Yeah, we were wanting to improve the biodiversity on the site by creating dead hedges around the perimeter of the property and then to plant with indigenous trees. We also wanted to create wildlife havens for birds, for bats, for hedgehogs. So we wanted to plant native plants on the woodland floor. There was no light getting through to the woodland floor prior to this because of the denseness of the canopy. A lot of the trees that we felled were diseased. A lot of them were very tall, skinny saplings that were obliterating the light. So we were just on a mission to try and clear some of it and make as good as we could to improve biodiversity in the woodland for our grandchildren in particular.
Yeah, and our son who's helping us with it, he's a qualified, our son who's helping us with it, he himself is a qualified biodiversity ecologist of recently, so it's part of a family project to look after this whole site, and we've rather been stopped in our tracks by this tree order, which has prevented us clearing any more and getting on with it, really. So the next of the 4 points, health and condition of the trees.
You have 1 minute left.
1 minute, okay. The trees that are existing trees are not in good condition. We had a survey done on the rest of the site where we were building, and there were no Class A trees, a couple of Class Bs, and the rest were Cs and Us. So the quality of the trees there is not good, and they're very overgrown and unhealthy. Last point, impact on neighbours, you asked us to talk about. And I think this would improve amenity because there'll be a much more attractive looking front to the road. We've got 50 metres of the front there, and there'll be bluebells and there'll be attractive woodland rather than a tangled dark mass of wood, as it were. And we would like to improve it in that way, but have been stopped from doing so. I don't know if you want to say anything else, Nikki, about the impact on neighbours, but I think it'll increase amenity rather than cause any problem.
Questions from members? Councillor Miller? Yeah.
Good evening. Just a quick one. You recently bought this property, I understand. Do you have any idea of how old that woodland happens to be? I'm not angling if it's ancient woodland, but has it been there for 50 years or however long? I'm sorry?
About 60 years.
60 years?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? Further questions? Okay, thank you very much. If you'd like to take your seats. And can you turn off the mic, please, as you leave? Thank you very much. We have no other speakers, so questions for officers. Councillor Freeman.
Just for clarification, really, with a tree preservation order, it doesn't mean that they can't remove any trees. It just means that they have to apply for permission to do anything to the protected trees. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right, Councillor. So a planning application would have to be made. There are some exemptions within the legislation. So dead trees, trees that are imminently dangerous would come under an exemption, but just require the submission of a 5-day notice. And with woodlands in particular, we would accept a management plan, so that would potentially give a rolling consent over a period of time when an applicant might want to implement phased works or a longer term programme for tree works.
Fantastic, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Court.
Just to clarify on the question by Councillor Freeman, though, how long does this process take? Was it something that's done quickly or what? I'm saying, would the applicants be unreasonably delayed because it would take years to put together a management plan? Question mark.
So, I mean, in terms of putting together a management plan, that would depend on whether they wrote it themselves or used a consultant or whatever. Once the application comes into us, we have a statutory 8-week period in which to determine that application. And as I said, in the case of dead trees, imminently dangerous trees, anything that might come under an exemption, it's a 5-day notice.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Okay. Move to debate if you wish. Councillor Miller. Councillor McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. We've had a few of these come before this committee over the years, and just outside my ward, in fact, I think it's in your ward, Chair, of Dixon Road that was completely destroyed by new owners. However, here we have a woodland that's at least 60 years old, by the as evidenced by the landowner. 60-year-old woodland needs maintenance, and it's one thing we are lacking in this council. We have a lot of woodlands. About 15 years ago, we put money aside specifically for managing our woodlands. It happened over a 2-year period, and then it disappeared. And a lot of our woodlands, there's some in my ward and in other members' wards on this committee, I'm sure, that are in desperate need of maintenance. So it is unfortunate that here we have some good intentions, and the result of that is that before this committee we've got a TPO put on a whole woodland. And I appreciate my colleague's question to officers, because you have these good intentions actually slowed down by bureaucracy. It's a shame, and in some cases we need to do it. I've got no problem with that. And I sincerely hope that maybe the applicants can get a management plan put together on this. I know the Forestry Commission has various rules about it. It would be nice if the Forestry Commission actually stood up to some of their own rules, because the Dixon Road application is a classic where they didn't do anything when that was contravened on their own rules. So you see where I'm coming from here. We've got a bit of a dichotomy, I think. I think the TPO is going to have to stand in this particular case, but it's not. It's a bit of a blunt instrument sometimes, and that's my honest opinion. And I think listening to the applicants, reading the report, reluctantly I would go along with the TPO, but I think we need to be a little bit more subtle probably in the application of these TPOs, identifying specific trees within the woodland, for instance, because that would make life easier for the applicant because of their good intentions. But these blanket TPOs, they're not very subtle. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to say anything? Councillor Court.
And one final point.
Oh, sorry. Councillor McCormick was first. Sorry, I do apologise. Then Councillor Court. Councillor Hussey, did you want to?
Okay. I'm happy to second on the basis that we have had other cases like this in other parts of the borough where a planning application comes in and has to be considered if trees are being cut down. Page 323, section 3.2 says that, final bullet point. I think we're looking at the history. It was because trees were cut down before a planning application went in, and then the TPO came in, the application was withdrawn. But I shouldn't think that would preclude a future application going in. And as has been previously stated, trees need managing. So I'm happy to second.
Did you actually propose?
You can put, yes, yeah. I'm quite happy to propose it. It's just, I hope the applicants can also listen to the feelings that I put around that proposal, because I can't actually amend anything in this recommendation along the lines that I was trying to put across.
I was just making sure Councillor McCormick actually had something to second.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Court.
I was just going to second it, sir.
Councillor Hussey. Okay.
Thank you. The order has been confirmed without modifications in accordance with the main report.